I'll go Taylor Swift, not even 10 out of 10 times, but 100 out of 100.
Are you wearing red in honor of her?
Yes. Yep. Taylor Swift actually went to Wisconsin. A lot of people don't know that.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into Monkey Knife Fights NFL show, week 11. Here it is. You know, we talked at the beginning of the year. It was week 1, and then before you knew it, it'd be Thanksgiving, week 11, week 12, and here we are. We are getting to the nitty-gritty of the NFL season, getting towards that playoff push. I'm Dan Watkins. Joining me, as he does on the NFL show every week, is Rotowire's Nick Whalen. Nick, I know I had to kind of pull you away from listening to Taylor Swift this morning, but Adele dropped an album today too, so I got to get your take here. Adele or Taylor? Which one are you going with?
This is easy money. Taylor Swift in a landslide. I'm not an Adele guy at all. A little like too emotional, I guess, for me. And I know Taylor Swift falls into that category as well, but I find that Taylor Swift songs are at least catchy, whereas Adele's are just like straight up sad. And, she's just kind of crying basically for like an hour on an album. Not really interested in that. I'm a pretty strong supporter, always have been, of, like country Taylor Swift. So like the re-release of Red, it's kind of right on the borderline if she was making that transition. But a lot of those songs still have the country feel that I'm looking for. So I'll go Taylor Swift, not even 10 out of 10 times, but 100 out of 100.
Are you wearing red in honor of her?
Yes. Yep. Taylor Swift actually went to Wisconsin. A lot of people don't know that.
Very good. Very good. All right. NFL Week 11 getting underway with a massive shutout by the Patriots over the Atlanta Falcons on Thursday Night Football, 25-0 the final. Nick, when you watch that game on Thursday night, does that say more about the Patriots or more about the Falcons just being terrible?
It's a little bit of both. I think, the Patriots have gotten most of the credit, coming out of that game from what I've listened to and what I've read, and certainly watching the game last night. It feels like there's this kind of Patriots breakout happening right now. But at the same time, Atlanta looked terrible. And it was clear from like 3 snaps in that New England was just going to be so much more physical. Atlanta was not going to be able to move the ball. I thought the Falcons had some really costly penalties early on that felt like anytime they, even if they would get like a 6-yard run, it would automatically be called back for holding. All of a sudden it's 2nd and 16 and they just had no shot. So it was an overwhelming performance by that Pats defense. I thought the New England offense looked okay. The running game has been really strong. Not a great game from Mac Jones, but it's kind of easy to make like the early career Tom Brady comparisons, but it really does kind of feel that way, right? Like the way that he just so confidently has been managing these games. And they've been able to beat up on a lot of bad teams, but other elite teams around the league have struggled with some of these opponents. We saw the Falcons pull off some big wins over these last few weeks, and New England goes in on the road and just steamrolls them. So, I'm still maybe not quite ready to write in the Patriots as like a team that could go all the way to the AFC title game. But at the same time, Buffalo has kind of faltered. Baltimore has faltered. Tennessee is really the only team that feels like, it hasn't had these big missteps of late. So the AFC is wide open, and New England is certainly going to be in that mix.
Yeah, I certainly want to play the Patriots in the playoffs right now, the way they're going in.
Especially not at home.
No, and the Pats coming up here, they've won 5 in a row. They have Tennessee next week. Then they have 2 with Buffalo in 3 weeks. And then they have the Colts mixed in there too. So a nice little 4-game stretch here where we're really going to find out what this Patriots team is the next couple of weeks. But I saw a couple great stats from Thursday Night Football. The Pats intercepted Matt Ryan, Josh Rosen, and Felipe Franks. It's the first time a team had 3 quarterbacks throw an interception in the same game since November 12th, 2000, when Jim Harbaugh, Ryan Leaf, and Moses Marino did it for the San Diego Chargers. At that point, also, by the way, Tom Brady had not attempted a pass in his career. So just how long ago that was. And that's from Jeff Howe of The Athletic. And then another thing from last night as well. One of the guys who had one of those picks was Kyle Van Noy. He had 5 tackles, 2 sacks, and that interception he returned for a touchdown. He was subjected to a random drug test on Friday morning in Foxborough. So there you go. The NFL just doing those random drug tests. That's right up there with my favorite one of all time, though, is definitely a couple of years ago when Adam Vinatieri kicked like a 50-yarder. And then all of a sudden on Monday morning, he had a drug test waiting for him. So it's truly just amazing, the randomness of the National Football League.
Yeah. The one other stat I'll throw out there, by the way, and it was actually kind of hilarious the way they announced it during the telecast. Atlanta did not reach 100 yards of total offense until 2 minutes remaining in the third quarter of this game. So, that tells you all you need to know. They were, unless it was like second or third and short, they had no chance of converting anything. And it was just 3 and out, occasionally maybe a 4 or a 5 and out. But that New England defense, Matt Judon, I think gets a lot of credit. McCourty obviously gets a lot of credit, but I mean, they seem like they swarm around as like a full unit. I think better than any team in the league right now. And it always does seem to go in cycles, but New England is always a team that you trust to be consistent on that side of the ball.
Yep. And Matt Judon has just been a great free agent pickup for the Pats. He tweeted out something about Adele this morning too. He said, since he's got the long weekend going on and Adele just dropped a new album, he's going to sing some karaoke. So if you're in the greater Boston area or wherever Matt Judon's hanging out, I don't know, go to a karaoke bar. Maybe you'll see something you probably won't ever forget. So let's move on and talk about week 11, a nice little Sunday we got planned here in the NFL. Starting things off, the early 1:00 Eastern slate is the Packers and the Vikings. Aaron Rodgers, Nick, 270.5 is his more or less for passing. He's thrown for 271 in just 3 of 9 games so far this season. We've talked about this before this year. It's kind of a new Aaron Rodgers where he's just going to kind of manipulate the game the way he sees fit. He might not throw all over you, but no Aaron Jones for a little bit here. So does that mean things are going to open up for this Green Bay passing game? I mean, are they going to be forced to? And Minnesota also, they ranked 14th in the NFL against the pass, allowing 238 yards per game through the air. How do you feel about Rodgers?
I think I like the less here. I think this is a potential trap game for Green Bay. I think they certainly respect the Vikings as an opponent, and they always seem to find a way to split with Minnesota, even though Green Bay has been the better team for the most part of the last decade. But I think this is a tough spot. I mean, you come in, not only is Aaron Jones going to be out of this game, but Rashawn Gary is banged up. We still don't know if David Bakhtiari is going to be back. And I didn't think Rodgers looked all that great last week. Obviously he's coming off of a week and a half essentially of inactivity, and that's a big part of it. But I think this team's really going to miss Aaron Jones, and there is an argument that without him, maybe they do have to throw more. But they also use Aaron Jones quite a bit as a weapon out of the backfield. He can split out, he can play in the slot. He's had a lot of big catches over these last couple of years. So I actually think the absence of Aaron Jones probably hurts them in the passing game a little bit more than it maybe pushes them to throw more. Because AJ Dillon can still catch passes, but not to the same level as Aaron Jones. So I think we see maybe a more conservative game plan, kind of similar to what we saw last week, where if AJ Dillon has to carry the ball 25 times and you try to win this game like 17-14, I think that's okay with Green Bay. I mean, they're a team that has really not put up gaudy point totals at all. I mean, that was what they did last year. They led the league in scoring, and like you alluded to, Dan, like they've taken on a completely new identity. Like they're almost playing like Patriots type of football, right? Where it's we're not going to try to get off to some sort of trap meet and beat you 37-30. We're totally fine leaning on our defense, which is somewhat of a foreign concept for the Green Bay Packers. But we're fine winning games by 3-6 points, and just kind of making sure that we're not the team making mistakes.
Yep. And then let's talk about AJ Dillon for a second here. 80.5 is his more or less on MKF this week. That would match his career high if he gets to, his season high, if he gets to 81 yards this week against the Vikes. I mean, that is a misleading number because, he's been in that timeshare backfield with Aaron Jones, but I'm looking at last week against Seattle when he had 21 carries and just finished with 66 rushing yards against a, run defense in Seattle. Minnesota's right around the same when it comes to yards per game given up. They're giving up about 130 yards per game, but I don't know. That feels just a little too high for me to go in on it.
I think I'm going to go the other way. I think I like the more there. Dylan had that huge reception, for like 55 yards. That it kind of felt like a running play, and that's kind of in the modern NFL when you have these short little pitches around the goal line. It's hard to parse what's a run and what's a pass. But I really do think they lean heavily on him in this game. Like you said, they haven't really let Rodgers air it out at any point this year. Like they've had very few big plays through the air, those long downfield passes that you're used to seeing from the Packers. Like they're more than happy to just kind of chip away, control the clock. And I think that's the kind of game that we see here. And Minnesota has a solid defense. But I think Green Bay is happy to hand the ball to AJ Dillon 20 plus times. And if that happens again, I think he goes over that total. I was actually surprised to hear that rushing total at the end of last game. It felt like he had more yards. But I think we see kind of a repeat performance of Green Bay leaning pretty heavily on their backup running back.
And then, of course, you can't talk about the Packers offense without talking about Davante Adams. 95.5 more or less receiving yards for Adams. He's reached 96 yards in just 3 of 9 games this season. It's been over a month now, too, since he's gotten there. I think October 10th against the Bengals was the last time he really had a monster game when he finished with 206 receiving yards. I think that qualifies as a monster game there. So it's been a little bit for Devontae, but my gut feeling here is that we're overdue for one of these games from him. He hasn't busted out in a while, and I think it's coming this weekend against Minnesota. How do you feel?
It certainly could be. I mean, it does kind of go against my philosophy of I think this is a low yardage game for Rodgers, but at the same time, there's no quarterback who's more reliant on one guy than Rodgers is on Devontae. So Rodgers could conceivably throw for 220 yards and 130 of those could go to Devontae Adams, and that wouldn't be surprising. So yeah, I think we're on the right track here. I think this is a good spot for Devontae Adams. I mean, I think back to that Cowboys game with Cooper Rush at quarterback, where that Minnesota secondary was just turned itself around. They're batting balls into the hands of receivers, committing stupid penalties. I think if there is one thing Rodgers can take advantage, it is Devontae against that Minnesota secondary, which has been shaky at best.
And then, of course, on Minnesota's offense, you got Kirk Cousins, 265.5 passing yards is his more or less. He's thrown for 266 yards or more in 5 of 9 games this season. But Green Bay is number 3 in the NFL against the pass, with allowing just 203 yards per game. And it's truly amazing because they've been doing this without Jair Alexander for most of the season. Field Yates had a crazy tweet the other day about just how good Green Bay's secondary has been and targeting wide receivers. I think quarterbacks are completing less than 60% of their passes to their wideouts against Green Bay this year. And with Minnesota, you got that kind of, that two-headed monster in Thielen and Jefferson. He's got to complete passes to those guys to get to this number. I'm a little hesitant to go to 266. I'm going to take the less here, but if this dropped to 250, then I might go more.
Yeah, I mean, the Kirk Cousins that we've seen this year, and again, I think back to that Dallas game where it was, he just did not want to test that secondary, right? I mean, it was just check down after check down after check down. And traditionally, I would say, I don't know if I trust this Packers defense, but I mean, it's been 5-6 weeks now where they've looked like a top 3 unit in the league. And this is without Jair Alexander. It's without probably their best defensive player overall. And obviously without Zadarius Smith, who hasn't played a single snap for them all year. Now, if Rashawn Gary's out of this game, maybe the pass rush suffers a little bit, and that gives Kirk Cousins some more time to be more, make some more confident throws. But I think we have to roll with the Packers defense, right? I mean, it's a tough receiver matchup 1-to-1, Jefferson and Thielen, but we have a quarterback who loves to check down, and we have a defense that's playing really well. So I think that points us toward the less here.
Now, Green Bay's pass defense has been really good. Their run defense, it's kind of okay. They're middle of the pack, allowing 107 yards per game. How does that set up for Dalvin Cook this week? His more or less is 80.5. He's reached 81 yards in 4 of 7 games. I think he's going to be right around there. Low 80s is going to be right there for him. I'll go with the more just to take it.
I'm going to go with the more too. I think back to that game against Green Bay last year. He had 30 carries for 163 yards. I think they knew, and that Green Bay defense was not playing as well as it is this year, granted, but I think the Vikings kind of know what the limitations are with Kirk Cousins against Green Bay, and they don't want to lean too heavily on him. They're happy to put the game in the hands of Dalvin Cook. I don't know that he gets to 30 carries. I don't know that he gets to 160 yards again, but I do think he goes over here.
All right. And then last up here quickly, Justin Jefferson, 5.5 receptions. The way we've been talking about this Green Bay secondary, I'm going to go less here. I don't think he's going to get to 6 catches as good as he's been as of late.
Yeah, that's probably just a little too high. I think he could get to 4 or 5 very easily. He's been kind of boom or bust the last few weeks, 8, 2, 3, 9, so way over or way under. But yeah, I think we have to trust this Green Bay defense that's proven that it's a really, really good unit. So I'll join you on the less there.
All right. Another game in that 1 o'clock slate. Bills taking on the Colts, rematch of the AFC wildcard round last year. Josh Allen, 285.5 passing yards. He's thrown for 286 or more in 4 of 9 games this season. Indy's allowing about 250 yards per game through the air. And I mean, Josh Johnson just threw for 317 in the air on these guys. So I'm going to take the more for Allen, especially since it's under 300 yards. I'm taking the more.
Yeah, we're going to find out a lot, I think, about both of these teams this week, right? Where the Colts feel like they're on the way up, and the Bills, have kind of been up, but we thought they'd be a little more dominant, and that they've had the benefit of beating up on some bad teams. But this is going to be their best opponent in a while, I guess, unless we're counting, that vaunted Jags defense, which, by the way, has allowed 1 touchdown in its last 20 defensive possessions. Just want to get that on the record. But this is going to tell us a lot, I think, about where Buffalo is. Specifically on both sides of the ball. I like the Bills in this game. I still trust them. I think they've had some weird games so far this year, but they've been really consistent over the last couple of years. Josh Allen, I think, is so dynamic when he's locked in. And I think this is somewhat of a statement game for Buffalo to kind of reassert itself as arguably the top team in the AFC. And I think that does start with the pass. So I'll go over as well.
All right, and let's talk about Allen's favorite target, Stephon Diggs. 7.5 receptions is his more or less on MKF. He's coming off his best game of the season where he had 8 catches for 162 yards against the Jets. He's reached that 8 reception mark in just 3 of 9 games this season. I think they're going to keep trying to force feed him the ball. I'm going more here just because the target share, 13 targets last week. I think he's going to be right up around there again this week.
Yeah, this is a tough number. It's like 1 point higher than I would like it to be. I think I'm going to go under. I mean, like you said, he's only hit that number 3 times so far. They've just kind of had trouble connecting on those big plays that we saw for so much of last year. So, I don't love this Indianapolis secondary. I think Diggs could easily get 6 or 7 catches, but that number is just a little too high for me. So I'll go under. All
right. And then on the other side, what are we going to see from Carson Wentz on Sunday? 225.5 is his passing total. He's thrown for 226 or more in 6 of 10 games this season, but the Bills are number 2 in the NFL against the pass, allowing just 190 yards per game. This has been a very good Buffalo secondary. And I don't know. I don't like trusting Carson Wentz ever. So
yeah, I know this doesn't make for good content, but this is like a glaring stay away. Like, I don't know. Like there should just be like if you hit this, you should get like 200 times your money on any Carson Wentz prop. You guys should throw up like a 1.5 left-handed passes for Carson Wentz.
Love it. I love it. All right. And then his running back, Jonathan Taylor, 75.5 rushing yards. I mean, Wentz is completely unreliable. Jonathan Taylor, the complete opposite. He's so reliable. I mean, he's kind of asserting himself as the guy in fantasy this year. He's had 4 of his last 5 weeks. He's been an absolute monster. And he's rushed for 76 or more in 5 of 10 games. As I just mentioned, 4 of those 5 are in the last 5 weeks. So he's but Buffalo is number 3 in the league against the run. So how do you expect JT to play on Sunday?
Well, if we're worried about how Carson Wentz goes up against that pass defense, I think we have to be a little worried about Buffalo just kind of selling out to stop Jonathan Taylor, right? And they've already been a really good rushing defense, like you said, but top 3 in the league. They barely allow any touchdowns. They're number 1 in the league in terms of allowing the fewest first downs through the rush on the year. So I think we're going to see Indianapolis, as it should, try to assert Jonathan Taylor early. The question is, if he gets stacked up and, is unable to get anything going the first 2-3 possessions of the game, do they go away from that, or do they continue trying to pound it? I think, like I said, I like Buffalo in this game. I think this is a good spot for that defense. So with that in mind, I think I have to go under, which it pains me to say it, Badger to Badger, but I will go under on JT this week.
And I see you got Ron Dane behind you there on your wall. Is there a Jonathan Taylor anywhere in the house?
No, there's not. Something about Jonathan Taylor, he just doesn't have that same mystique. Like he didn't set the state of New Jersey like shot put record in high school. So it's not quite the same for me.
All right, fair enough. All right, let's move on. 4:00 window, the late afternoon slate. 3 very notable games on this one. You got the Cowboys at the Chiefs, which is going to have a lot of eyes on it. Cardinals at the Seahawks, Bengals at the Raiders. So I think this is a perfect time to run a 2-minute drill. Nick, how do you feel about that?
Let's do it. I've been preparing for this all week.
All right, let's do it. Start the clock, 2 minutes. And let's start with Patrick Mahomes, 299.5 passing yards, more or less.
I think we're going more here. I don't know that Mahomes and that offense are fully back, but I think we get a true shootout here. I think this game could be played in the high 30s.
All right, and then his receiver Tyreek Hill, 89.5, more or less.
I think we're going more. Dallas defenses look good, but I think they hit one big one. Diggs has been so like high risk, high reward. He's getting a ton of picks, but he also gives up a ton of big plays. So I think we see like a 70+ yard touchdown from Tyreek Hill.
All right. Dak Prescott, will the Cowboys answer? 298.5 passing yards, more or less.
I'm going more here too. Shootout, high 30s. I think both quarterbacks play well.
How about Dallas running back Ezekiel Elliott, 77.5 rushing yards for Zeke, more or less.
I got to go more. I was prepared to say less on that first number, but if it's in the mid 70s, I think we got to go more.
It's actually 68.5 now. It dropped, so more is the
better yet. Definitely more. Okay.
All right.
20-point swing.
Take the more there for Zeke. Moving on to that Bengals-Raiders game. Joe Burrow, 270.5 passing yards for Burrow.
I'm going to go less. I think I was telling my buddies this week, this is the toughest game I've had to pick all year. I think it's the most even matchup that we've seen. And I think it could get a little sloppy on the road for Cincinnati. And they've lost, I think, 5 straight coming off of a bye. They always struggle. They've lost those games by an average of like 25 points. I think this one gets a little ugly.
This is not the Marvin Lewis Bengals. Come on, Nick. Moving on, Jamar Chase, 81.5 receiving yards for Burrow's favorite target. What do you got?
I'm going to go less. I think both offenses struggle in that game.
Okay, and then moving on, finally here, we got the Cardinals and the Seahawks. Russell Wilson, 250.5 passing yards. Is Russ going to cook this weekend?
I'm still a little worried about how healthy that finger is. I mean, he had legitimately the worst game of his career by a lot of metrics last week against Green Bay. And Arizona's been up and down, but that number is a little too high for me.
All right. And finally here, Kyler Murray is expected to play this weekend, 245.5 passing yards, more or less.
I'm going to go more. We've seen some quarterbacks come back from injury or come back from absence and look a little slow, take some time to come back. But I think Kyler's had enough time off that he's going to look like himself here.
All right. Very
2 minutes and 15 seconds. Not bad.
Gosh, I should have clocked it.
Not bad. Yep. Yeah. Got to spike the ball. The ball here. All right.
Field goal unit's got to be ready.
All right. We got one last game for you guys, and that's Sunday Night Football. Steelers at the Chargers. We'll set up a nice little 5x5 for you guys here to end your Sunday with. And let's talk about Justin Herbert, 270.5 passing yards. He's thrown for 271 or more in 5 of 9 games this season, but just once in the last 4. Pittsburgh ranks 9th in the NFL against the pass, allowing just 226 yards per game. I'm a little hesitant here to take the more here. I think Herbert has really kind of struggled as of late, except for that one game against the Eagles.
Yeah, this offense has been just so frustrating to watch because it looks so explosive through the first 3 or 4 games of the year. It felt like they were hitting like 2 massive plays downfield to Mike Williams every game, and now they have just turned into this reverted back to like the 2017 Chargers offense who just find ways to lose every game. I kind of like the Chargers in this game, though. I mean, I know it's basically going to be a home game for Pittsburgh because of the lack of fans and because Pittsburgh travels as well as anybody. But I don't think Pittsburgh's very good. I mean, they just tied the Lions. They definitely should have lost at home to Chicago the week before. They got a ton of really helpful calls in that game. Big Ben, if he plays, probably not going to be 100%. Everybody's banged up for them. Chase Claypool, I don't think is going to play in this game. TJ Watt might not play in this game. Cam Hayward was banged up in their last game as well. I think they've kind of just been skating by these last couple of weeks against inferior opponents. And it does feel like there's enough pressure now on the Chargers to open up the playbook. Like, they've been so bad on offense these last few weeks that I think we maybe see an overcorrection. And for me, that's a good thing. Like, if they start airing it out against this Pittsburgh defense, I think there's going to be opportunities here. So I actually like the Chargers quite a bit. I'm going to go over on that number.
Yeah, I like the Chargers in this one as well. And one of the reasons why I like LA is because of their running back, Austin Eckler. His rushing total in this one is 60.5, more or less. He's reached 61 rushing yards in just 3 of 9 games this season. And outside of the one monster game he had against the Raiders, his highest total was 66. I think he's going to go over that. I like Eckler to have a pretty good day on Sunday Night Football, especially against the Steelers defense that ranks 25th against the run in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like every time you watch the Steelers, like they have this great defense, like they have for so long. But then you watch them against the Lions last week, and DeAndre Swift is like breaking 15-yard runs left and right. Like I said, it just feels like they're kind of beaten down right now, and they need to get some guys healthy. So yeah, again, I think the Chargers have a pretty good chance to move the ball against the defense that's been just used to playing some inferior competition these last couple of weeks. So yeah, I'll join you on the over there.
And then how about Keenan Allen, 77.5 receiving yards. He's reached 78 or more in 4 of 9 games this season. Plus, he's had 2 more games with 77 and 75. So he's hovered right around there all year.
Yeah, he's had a weird year. Been very up and down. But lately, yeah, he's been right on that total or over in 2 of the last 3. I think he's part of a big day. I mean, if Herbert is going to throw for close to 300 yards, I think Allen is obviously going to be a big part of that. So I'll take the over there, and I think his number for receptions is 6.5. I also like the more on that.
All right, very good. And then you got Najee Harris, who, you mentioned that tie with the Lions last week. That one quote I saw from Harris, that I don't know if he was joking or not, but that he didn't know that there was ties in the NFL. I mean, come on, Rook, come on.
The best part is he's like, well, what if that happened in the playoffs? Well, what do you think would happen, man? Like, we just called a tie and both teams advanced? No, man. Like, somebody says this once a year, it feels like, right? Or every time there's a tie, some player always says, like, I didn't even know we could tie. Like, I think deep down he knew, right? How could you not know?
Yeah, it's just something. But anyways, his rushing total, 78.5 rushing yards. He's reached 79 yards or more in 4 of 9 games this season, including 4 of his last 5. So he's been running the ball really well lately. And the Chargers are absolutely terrible against the run. 155 yards per game they're giving up on the ground. They're getting gashed. So I like the more here with Harris, regardless of who the quarterback is for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I think the argument maybe is that if I'm so high on the Chargers, maybe they get up in this game and Pittsburgh is kind of forced to throw its way back in, which I think would not be good the way Big Ben has been playing. But yeah, I mean, with Harris, like, the Steelers' offensive line hasn't been great. He only has 200-yard games, but I mean, he's just carrying the ball so many times. I mean, he's got 22 carries or more in each of his last 5 games, kind of regardless of the game script. They just can't get anything going via the pass, so they have to just pound Najee Harris. And against this Chargers defense, I think that's kind of like the number one defense you'd want to do this against. So, I'm actually surprised this number is not a little bit higher based on the defense and based on the volume that he's had.
And then we don't know who Pittsburgh's quarterback is going to be yet as the time we're recording this show. Ben has to clear COVID protocols. I think he needs 2 negative tests back within 24 hours of each other or something like that, or 24 hours apart. Excuse me. He is vaccinated. So there is a chance he plays in this one. Let's just quickly here touch on Pittsburgh's quarterbacks, Nick. Ben is averaging 248.5 yards per game through the air. If he plays, does he get over that?
I don't think so. I don't even know how he's getting over 200 yards every week. Like, again, you watch these games and it's just painful to watch that passing offense. Like if Big Ben is under any pressure whatsoever, it's like game over. He no longer has that like innate ability to just like dodge tacklers. He's just a statue back there. So no, I don't like this spot for Pittsburgh at all. I think they are in a tough spot, might get overwhelmed by a team that's just better than the teams that they face these last couple of weeks. And if Big Ben does play in this game, he's likely not going to practice at all. He's really not going to get any reps throughout the week. Not that he needs them as like an 18th year quarterback or whatever it is, but that to me, that just makes it kind of an even more difficult spot for that offense where you might be throwing a quarterback in who's essentially coming in cold and hasn't played in 2 weeks.
And I'm guessing since you don't like Ben in this one, if Mason Rudolph plays, I'm assuming you don't like him either. He threw for 242 yards last week on 30 completions. That is just terrible for the Okie State product for Mason Rudolph.
Yeah.
I don't think Rudolph would even get to 220 in this game.
I mean, part of me, like, if the attempts are there, maybe he can. Like, part of me is like slightly more scared of Rudolph just because he is like a little more mobile and like has a little more like physical ability to just get the ball out there at this point. Like, remember, was it the Bears game when Roethlisberger had like a wide open, I think it was Deontay Johnson, like downfield, and like threw it as hard as he could and the ball went like 28 yards and he had to like run back and make a sliding catch. Like, at least Rudolph like has arm strength, but at the same time, the Steelers win that game last week if Mason Rudolph doesn't throw a ball in the dirt on 4th down from like 6 feet away to a wide open receiver in the end zone. So if you're on the Chargers side of this, I think it's kind of a win-win. You probably feel better about it if Mason Rudolph's the quarterback, but either way, I can't keep hammering enough. Like, I think this is a really tough spot for Pittsburgh.
I agree. I completely agree. All right. Before we end the show here, a couple of announcements from us, our friends here, all the wonderful people at Monkey Knife Fight. With it being, the end of November, December's coming up. We're getting into the winter months. That means winter sports are in full swing and the NHL is in full swing. We got some great NHL contests on Monkey Knife Fight. And they now feature 25 times a payout for your buy-in and 100 times your buy-in on our 6x6 and 8x8 contests respectively. I don't know if we have any props on how many guys Connor McDavid's going to skate around to score a goal. He just did it. He skated through 3 guys last night in Edmonton when he scored a goal. And then I think he split like 4 Rangers a couple of weeks ago. So Connor McDavid is absolutely on fire. Play some of those NHL contests. Nick, who's your favorite NHL player?
Current NHL player?
Current. Sure.
Unknown. Alexander Ovechkin seems like a cool guy.
Love it.
I was a big, I played a lot of NHL 98 on the PC growing up. And I was a big Pavel Bure and Mike Modano guy. I always trade for those guys right away. For some reason, like Dallas Stars became my team. I like that Eddie Belfour in goal at the time.
There you go. There's some names.
Oh, yeah. I honestly think I could name more hockey players that played in 1998 than 2021.
Yeah, you had Brett Hull in the crease. I mean, that's how they won the cup. All those guys. I love it. Absolutely love it. So check out those NHL contests. You can win quite a bit of money on those. And also don't forget to subscribe to our wonderful YouTube channel, Monkey Knife Fight here. Nick, it's that time again. Where can they follow you?
All right. I go on other shows and everybody just says, oh, the L's a 1, like it's no big deal. And here I feel like I'm under the gun every single show. So here it is, WHA1EN. And that's, you're not spelling out 1, it's just the number 1. It looks strikingly like a lowercase L. Shouldn't be that big of a deal, but to some people it may be. So just my last name, but replace that L with the number 1.
Very good. You can follow me at Watkins Radio. Thanks for watching, guys, and good luck this weekend on your NFL contest.